I am not saying slick, but I am saying it's accurate.
All right, folks, it's 6:01, so let's get started with the public hearing. First of all, let's just go over the usual meeting participation. So this meeting is being held in person and virtually. So please keep background noise to a minimum, and all virtual participants will be muted throughout the meeting. When it's your turn to speak, you can use the raise hand function. It's on the reactions button, and we will get you in the order you raise your hand. When you do raise your hand, once again, please make sure all of the background noise is kept to a minimum. The way it will work is we will take comments from people who are in person here with us tonight at URI, and then we will go to the folks who are participating virtually. And then after we've exhausted both sources, if anyone has an additional comment to make, we will take those as well. One thing to be clear though, if you're making an additional comment, please make it different than your original comment. We are recording this meeting. There's no need to repeat yourself. Also, please try to keep your comments as brief as possible. This meeting isn't a workshop, so we'll just be taking comments and answering clarifying questions only. For the folks online, when it's your turn to speak, you will be unmuted, and then you'll have your turn to speak. So without further ado, welcome. Today is September 12th, 2022, and it is 6 p.m. My name is John Lake, supervisor with the DEM Division of Marine Fisheries, and I'm here tonight to officiate this hearing regarding the proposed amendments to Rhode Island fishery regulations on behalf of DEM Director Terry Gray. Please be advised that this hearing is being recorded and will be made available on the Division's webpage. Today with me from the Division are myself, Nicole Costa, Peter Duhamel, Connor McManus, Margaret McGrath, Scott Olszewski, Corinne Truesdale, Nicole Aris, and Jeff Mercer from DLE. Tonight's hearing concerns proposed amendments to the following Division regulations. Part 2, Commercial Marine Fishing Licenses, Landing Permits, and Party Charter License, which were publicly noticed on August 18th, 2022, pursuant to the procedural requirements of Rhode Island General Law, Chapter 42-35, Administrative Procedures, and under the authority of Rhode Island General Law 42-17.1. The purpose of this hearing is to afford interested parties an opportunity to provide oral testimony, data, opinions, and/or arguments concerning the proposed rulemaking. For tonight's hearing, the following process will be observed. The Division will provide a PowerPoint presentation summarizing each of the main proposals. Persons wishing to speak must raise their hand and be recognized by the hearing officer prior to speaking. Speakers must first state their name and/or affiliation for the record. And if you don't, I will interrupt you and ask you to speak your name. So try to remember to speak your name when you make your comment. The hearing is not a forum for discussing, debating, arguing, or otherwise having any dialogue. Any questions must be limited to clarifying questions only. So we have had 3 workshops, so there's been plenty of time for debate, and the hearing period does not end until September 22nd. If you're not ready for your comment, you still have plenty of time to submit a written comment. A second comment may only be made after all other speakers have had an opportunity to speak. And once oral comments are complete, this hearing will conclude. Written comments are strongly encouraged and may be submitted to the Division by the end of the notice comment period on Thursday, September 22nd. Division staff are available to answer any questions regarding any of the proposals. So tonight's only clarifying questions. If you have more in-depth questions, feel free to ask anyone on staff. The record of this public hearing and comments will be provided to the Rhode Island Marine Fisheries Council for consideration at their meeting on October 11th, 2022, at which time the Council will provide a recommendation to the Director on each item. Please note this Council meeting was rescheduled from October 3rd, so it's going to be after Columbus Day, not the first Monday like it usually is. After the comment period has closed, the Council meeting has taken place, the Director will render his final decision. The Director has the option to file the rules and regulations with the Secretary of State as noticed, file the rules and regulations with minor changes, or not file and consider renoticing with or without additional amendments. If filed, these rules and regulations become effective 20 days after the filing and have the effect of law. Prior to hearing comments, the following exhibits are noted for the record. Exhibit 1 is a copy of the public notice and proposed regulations that were filed with the Secretary of State on, August 18th, thank you. Exhibit 2 is a copy of tonight's presentation and the slides. Exhibit 3 exhibits 3 through 7 are written comments that the division have received on the items before tonight. So without further ado, let's get to the slides. So the first item that we're taking comments on is our exit entry ratio for the unlimited finfish endorsement. So a little bit of background information here. We have had a change in our licensing structure. This in the past has been called the restricted finfish endorsement. It is now called the standard license unlimited finfish endorsement. It has the exact same species that the restricted have. It is only changed in name. As some of you may recall, last year we made it was decided to make a change to the exit entry ratio. Where we stand now is that for every one restricted finfish endorsement exiting, 2 are made available to new entrants. And that was up from the 1-to-1 ratio, meaning one out, one in. This year, we have had 12 eligible endorsements not renewed, 5 multi-purpose licenses, and 7 of the old principal effort licenses. That would result in we've had 2 proposals. Proposal 1 is to stick with status quo, which is a 1-to-2 ratio. That would result in 24 new endorsements being available. Proposal 2 would be, which we received from industry, would be to go back to the 1-to-1 ratio, 1 in, 1 out. That would result in 12 endorsements being available. I'll open up comments for the unlimited finfish endorsement. Ken.
Yeah, Ken Booth. I would recommend going with a 1-to-1 ratio at this point. Concerns on releasing more licensing without understanding the effects of the increase last year and not knowing what sectors those 24 licenses held into. And I'll reflect back to the striped bass season, which disappeared very quickly this year. So try to figure out how much effect those new licenses had on that. But at the same time, this plays into other topics later in the discussion tonight that I think we should stop paying more attention to how we strengthen the fisheries, the different sectors of the fisheries, other than just randomly increase licenses. So there's a goal to do it as opposed to what sounds like a good number.
Thank you. Yes.
Richard Lima, I'm in favor of proposal number 2. Once again, I think until we get a database of what we have out there, and what this is going to affect the fishing industry as well as the license and what people will bring in before we move to expanding anything.
Thank you. All right, does anyone online have a comment on the unlimited finfish endorsement ratio, exit entry ratio?
No hands.
No hands. Does anyone have any additional comments on the unlimited finfish endorsement exit entry ratio?
I have 1 hand on Zoom.
Okie doke.
Go ahead, Dave. You should be able to unmute.
Yes, John, Dave Monty here. Does the department have a position on this at all?
The department could manage either of the 24 or 12 new licenses. From our perspective, we'd still be able to manage any of the quotas with that many new entrants. So no, we do not. All right, seeing no additional comments being made, we'll move on to the next one. So the next item up for comment is the exit entry ratio for our unlimited shellfish endorsement. So this one's a little more complicated. So once again, we did change our licensing structure. In the past, you would be considering an exit entry ratio for a quahog endorsement and separately a soft shell clam endorsement. It should also be noted that Welk never had a exit entry ratio. It was available to active fishers with a quahog or soft shell clam endorsement. The new licensing structure has all three of those sectors of shellfish under the same umbrella, if it were the unlimited shellfish endorsement. We, earlier in the year, as a placeholder, put in a 1-to-1 ratio for this endorsement. However, we said we'd come back and revisit it this cycle, which we are doing now. So currently we're at a 1-to-1 ratio for these endorsements, meaning one eligible endorsement retired, one available. We had 29 endorsements not renewed, 5 multi-purpose, 10 were from the old PEL license, and 14 from the CFL license. That would result, we only have one proposal, and that's status quo for 1-to-1. That would make 30 new unlimited shellfish endorsements available. Any comments on the unlimited shellfish endorsement exit entry ratio? Does anyone on Zoom have a comment on the unlimited exit entry ratio? Sorry, unlimited shellfish exit entry ratio.
No hands.
All right, seeing no comments, we'll move on to the last item up for comment, and that is the multi-purpose vessel license. So there are 2 proposals. So by way of background, we've had 3 workshops on the multi-purpose vessel license. This was a license that was created via a legislative budget item in July 2022. The law just creates the license. It is up to the regulatory process to determine the rules around it and how it is issued. We have 2 proposals. The first proposal is to amend the current rules so there is no issuance of the multi-purpose vessel license in 2023. Proposal 2, which is a division proposal, is to amend the rule to provide an opportunity for issuance in 2023. I have here the four, if you will, larger items in the proposed rule. Please see the final rule for all of the provisions. To go over those 4 items, first of all, the multi-purpose vessel license would be available to natural persons who hold an actively fished multi-purpose fishing license and who own a commercial fishing vessel that is commercially declared. The second provision listed here, is that we would issue a maximum of 31 multi-purpose vessel licenses, and if the number of application exceeds the number of licenses available, 31, we would have a lottery to determine who would get these licenses. The other item is we propose to create an operator permit for the people running the vessels of the multi-purpose vessel license with a fee, a carried fee of $50. Also, any vessel that was issued a multi-purpose vessel license would be required to have a state-approved DMF system on board their vessel functioning while fishing. At all times. So once again, there are some other aspects to this rule in the annotated regs. Please feel free to go ahead and see and look there too if you have any other questions about them. With that, I'll open it up to comments on the multi-purpose vessel license. Bob.
I find that this is
Do you mind stating your name real quick?
Bob Morris. I believe this is opening the door to increasing the effort, which all we talk about is trying to reduce effort. You're going to give it to an operator to run the vessel, does not have a license, like correctly understand this, of multi-purpose license.
That's correct. The license would allow the owner of the vessel to appoint operators to run the vessel.
I definitely feel it's gonna be an effort increase, absolutely.
Thank you. All right, we will go to, oh, there you go.
Just trying to.
No problem. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Todd Lander. I'm an owner-operator with a multi-purpose license. From what I understood, owner-operator was a crucial aspect of my license and had a purpose. Can anybody tell me what that purpose is? That my license is now owner-operator?
So we only, in Rhode Island, to clarify, we only have an owner-operator rule for lobster.
Okay, so why was that put in?
It was before my time, but my understanding is it was to prevent the practice of folks armchair fishing.
I
lack of a
thought
better
what
term.
it was all about was consolidation of interest into corporations and bigger money getting involved, having several boats for one entity. And if it kept the person who had the license had to run the boat would stop that. I thought that was a fundamental reason for that. And it seems like proposal 2 would be completely fundamentally changing what my license was supposedly all about. Culturally and economically, you're going to have one boat with 10 license, one license. One person can now have, if I get this right, if I could get several multi-purpose, can I now have several multi-purpose licenses on proposal 2?
So to clarify, it was determined that the multi-purpose vessel, Rhode Island can only issue a commercial fishing license to a natural person. So it could not be a corporate owner of a vessel that was issued the license. It would have to be someone who owned the vessel in their name to be issued the license.
Okay,
so you could not, to answer your question, no, you could not have multiple licenses.
I could only have one license regardless of proposal 1 and 2.
That is correct.
So fundamentally, what this changes is my ability to appoint another captain to run my boat.
That is correct.
Okay, so there's no consistency. This is fairly new to me because I had no idea the significance of this, and apparently it was proposed through a budget.
It was, yeah, it was a legislative budget item. It went through July 1st, 2022.
Because this doesn't seem to be a budget consideration. This is a fundamental change in the fishery, and it just doesn't seem like it's properly being heard by, nobody I know even has heard of this, except the person who told me about it. And it's a fundamental change in operation. I'm strongly against proposal 2.
Thank you.
Jerry Cavallo. I got a written objection. I'll submit my copy to you, but I'll read it for the record. I'll now go into the historical or constitutional issues raised at this time by this new direction taken by the division addressing marine fisheries licenses. I will say that to submit this change in licensing from people to vessels is a substantial change in the fisheries management and never should have been submitted under the guise of a budget bill. The effect on the budget is minuscule, but the effect on the Rhode Island fishing industry will be profound. Many have raised the question to me as to whether this was intentional or it was an unperceived error. That is the submission of this through a budget proposal. The issuance of a multi-purpose fishing license to a Rhode Island resident and then to allow that license to be transferred to a vessel will dramatically change who is actually responsible for harvesting the marine resource. The determination on who is allowed to participate in the trade of fishing is effectively transferred from the General Assembly to the vessel owners and more likely to corporate vessel owners. These vessel owners get to decide who is allowed to participate in the fishery, and the greater responsibility of those that are employed will be to the company and not to the people of the state. I don't believe that the whole of the industry in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, was made fully aware of this legislative change or given the opportunity to voice their support or objection. Increasing the licensing fees after so many years is one thing. Creating an entirely new type of license in the package of a budget proposal is unacceptable. In any case, I strongly object to the law creating this new license and any regulations supporting that statute.
Thank you. We'll go Ken, and then anybody next.
Ken Booth, I have to advocate for proposal 1 at this point in time. The change, if you follow what's going on in other ports, and this was interesting the way this came about as part of the budget, because something of this magnitude, which is drastically over time, not this year, but over time, will change the whole fishing operation industry in Rhode Island. And if you look at the other ports that have this type of operation, not good at all. Corporate takeovers, fishermen working for peanuts, the small businesses going out of business. So something of this magnitude, I'm disappointed that it wasn't fully vetted. It went through the process, and we can say that. Our General Assembly does this all the time with budget bills, is tuck things in that don't want to go through the hearing process. I would be surprised if the elected representatives from South Kingston, Narragansett, Charleston, where a lot of the fishermen live, even know this is up there. It was tucked in a budget bill that they vote on, waving their hand up in the air at the last minute. I'm disappointed that the department is recommending proposal 2, or has even come up with it at this point, because the workshops we've had, there's been a lot of questions, there haven't been a lot of answers. We open a door here that we cannot close. 31 licenses get given out. You're not going to take them back from somebody. Legally, they're going to have those on those boats, and they're going to have to be able to use them. And it's going to be to the detriment of the fishing industry. And I just disappointed in the process. Again, 5 years down the line will be the big change, not this coming year. So I would recommend proposal number 1 and let the chips fall where they may. Open some workshops. When we had the sector allocation issue come up, we actually had big meetings on that. This did not happen. It occurred during the summer. Most of the fishermen are still out fishing. It's going to affect their lives big time. I can understand why some people would want it. I can't blame them for that. However, I mean, the department has never changed the regulations, because I would like to get 50 pounds more than Mr. Chappell here on my limit. We look at the whole picture, a change for one group to the detriment of the others really isn't a fair practice. So I recommend proposal number 1, and we sit back and pick the whole thing up and really study and look at what the effects are. The recreational fishery will get killed by these bigger boats being on the beach. They don't even know this is in here. You start the dragging those 80-footers up and down the beach, you'll clean everything up. And you can't close that door once it's open.
Thank you.
Doug Lucier, owner operator of the fishing vessel Lisa Lynn. Just to be clear, does this affect all fisheries, or is it just restricted fin fish, or is it lobsters too? If you have a lobster boat, you can appoint some other captain to run your lobster boat.
So it would function as a multi-purpose fishing license. However, for lobster, it would not supersede the owner-operator rule. So if you were to have this, you would still have to be, the owner would have to go out there hauling those pots.
How's that fair? Okay. Same thing with quahog then too? I couldn't have somebody else go out and run my quahog boat for me?
Co-op does not have an owner-operator rule.
Yes.
Richard Lima, definitely for proposal number 1. You look at the operating permit for the vessel, $50. That means that one boat could have 12 different captains on that boat. Is that right?
We did not propose a limit to operators.
So there's no limit. See, this has been tried, and I think we should really look into it. This has been tried down in Louisiana, down in Mexico, the shrimp boats. Total disaster. What happens is big industry takes over, and again, you have the little guys pushed out. Who's responsible for the landings in a situation like this? The boat, or the guy that has the $50 license?
It would be It would be a vessel license, so the
So-
license.
If you run the boat, you're on land, and you're telling that guy, fill it. He says, I'm filling it because I was told so. Until he gets nailed, he's gonna keep doing those things, because again, you're from the south or from wherever you are as a captain. Your job is to make sure that you bring the fish to the shore. I think the focus here is, we have Galilee. Galilee should be one of the best fishing ports on the East Coast. We have an opportunity to create that. And creating that is having a boat with a licensed captain, registered to that boat, to fish that boat, to keep Rhode Island, the community, and the towns together. With families living in the towns, producing money for the industry, and keeping money in the pie of the state of Rhode Island. That's where we should be focused.
Thanks. All right, we can go to the Zoom.
I'll go to the first person on Zoom that had their hand up. Should be able to unmute Dave.
Hi, folks, this is Dave Monty. I'm a member of the Marine Fisheries Council, and I'm just curious, not just curious, but I have a lack of knowledge. Does this regulation where the permit ends up going with the vessel and not the boat, is that how fisheries in federal waters work, number one? And the second part of my question is, what do other states do, other New England states, in terms of state permits? Do they go with the vessel or do they go with the individual?
So to clarify briefly, the federal system does permit the vessel. They issue vessel permits. And Rhode Island, while not unique, is a rare case where we license the individual, not permit the boat. Some of our neighbors do permit the boat. Not all of them.
Okay, next, Jason Jarvis, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, hello. I regret I couldn't be there in person, but thank you, COVID. First off, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I mean, I've been to every one of the workshops. One of the things I'll bring up is that I had asked a few people to show up to this meeting, but because of their relationship with fish houses involved in this, they didn't want to speak out. And I'll give you an example of what I've seen regarding this type of situation. Gentleman just mentioned Louisiana. I've had the privilege earlier this year to be in DC with every single represented council. So a fisherman from every council area within our country was at a meeting in DC, and the whole thing was talking about owner-operator, corporate takeover of the fishery, people being blackballed for speaking out against catch shares or things of this nature or IFQs. And it all comes down to the problems that they've already seen. And one of the things that came up, which was mentioned in one of the workshops. So no longer owner operator. If you want to go see the vessels down in Florida that I've seen, there's two gentlemen I know that used to work out of Point Judith and then out of Massachusetts. And I saw them one day down there on vacation with my wife, and the guy just laughed. He goes, "You tell me which boats are owner operator." So out of 25 boats in the port, there were 2 boats left with the crew on board, still cleaning the boat. And those boats were in tip-top shape and they were beautiful. The boats that weren't owner operator looked like they'd sink any minute. The other sad truth to all of that is something I learned while speaking to some folks from Louisiana. The cost of insurance on a vessel that is run by somebody other than the owner has increased the number of incidents and has increased the cost of insurance to these vessel owners and vessel operators. So multiple issues that have come along with that. And again, I think it's a slippery slope. I voiced my concerns over and over again with during the workshops. Again, I'm definitely not happy I couldn't be there because I prefer to look people in the eye when I speak to them. But again, something that Jerry had said earlier and that Ken had said earlier, there has still not been a clear explanation of why. So we're going to pass something already passed through the General Assembly, the cart before the horse, and there has still not been a clear explanation of why this is wanted, why this is needed, what it's all about. To me, it seems like it's a real simple way to make it more palatable, or I'd say more inviting for an outside agency, outside business to come in and buy up fish houses and boats. So I think it's a bad idea. I think no issuance of this. As a matter of fact, I think we need to go as far as go back to the General Assembly and have the language removed from the budget amendment. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Greg.
Hi, Greg Vespi, and I'm speaking for the Rhode Island Saltwater Anglers. And as you all know, we don't very often get involved in commercial fisheries issues, but I think we have some real concern with proposal 2. Part of it is we think it reduces accountability in that now you have a captain back home that isn't as involved in protecting and doing what's right ethically for the fishery. The other part of that is that the value of the catch remains the same. So now if you've got a armchair owner who has to make money and you've got a captain who has to make money and it's not the same person, somewhere along the line, there's going to be more pressure to try to squeeze a single dollar, to cut corners. And when it comes to exceeding catches and things, if the owner can kind of say, well, I didn't tell the captain to do that, and the captain's like, well, getting pressure from the owner, as recreational anglers and being part of an angling community or a fishing community, we would have real concerns with proposal 2. And therefore, at this point, we would certainly feel better about supporting proposal 1. Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom?
I will take a comment from Jeff Mercer.
Jeff Mercer, Environmental Police. We submitted or will be submitting written comments shortly, but just to get on the record, I'll read briefly from that. The multi-vessel license and associated operator permit will create a situation for the first time where there are 2 distinct department-issued licenses assigned to 2 distinct individuals associated with the operation of 1 singular commercial fishing vessel. We would like the regulations to reflect that both licenses would be subject to established penalties if a violation were to occur on the vessel. We suggest that the following language be included at the end of the proposed regulation. Non-compliance with the provisions of marine fisheries laws, rules, and regulations subject to both the multi-purpose vessel license holder and the operator permit holder to the penalties for non-compliance specified in section 1.11 of the subchapter.
Thank you. All right, does anyone have an additional comment to make on the multi-purpose vessel license? Go to Ken.
I just have to, question is not going to get an answer with, but I'm concerned, what I'm really disappointed in is, when you look at the department's mission statement, is go back to Colin's question, what's the plan? Because this is going to create some big winners and some big losers. And that hasn't been weighed or justified. That's what really kind of gets stuck in the middle. And and I realize a lot of respect for the staff in the department, but when you have to carry the water for somebody, I understand that too. But this is a huge issue down the line. You look at New Bedford, recent articles in the New Bedford Times, the fishermen down there are working for, the captain's getting paid 14 cents a pound for haddock when it comes in because they're running somebody else's boat. He's worried about whether he's gonna be able to pay his mortgage or not. But it just enhances one side of the equation big time. We're doing nothing for everybody else. That all has to be weighed out. And on the political side of the fence, they're negligent if they want to avoid talking about that. That's my statement.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Beamer. I think that if the issue is finding captains to run these boats, then maybe the overall picture would be through education, either through high school programs, college programs, state programs, then we acquire something that will allow people who are interested to be in this industry to acquire a license to be a captain, be a resident of the state of Rhode Island, to be able to get into the fisheries, where we don't go outside of the state to bring people in, to take resources away from individuals who already live there. I think we should be looking at that side of it. We have an ability, that would be the future, to educate people on the fishing industry, let them walk around and be able to be a captain or whatever, fish on one of these boats, have a license.
Thank you.
We have one more hand on the Zoom. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, another question I had, I don't think it had ever been answered, was the vessel operator permit. I know that when I've worked and fished on a federal boat that I got a federal operator's permit. That is very different than what is being proposed because this is not a federal licensed vessel. So is the state planning on coming up with a new vessel operator permit? And if so, where is the language and when is it going to be created and how do they go about validating it?
So yes, we are proposing a operator permit for the people that would run these multi-purpose vessels for a fee of $50.
But what would be their requirement to get that operator permit?
They would be appointed by the multi-purpose vessel owner.
Okay, that's not what I mean. I mean, what would be their credentials? Or could just somebody be walking down the bulkhead and say, hey, you can run the boat?
We propose no credentials for issuance of this license.
Okay, so there is a problem I have right now. I have my 100-ton license. And I'm bound by that. I screw up, I get in trouble for it. We can't just have anybody come down and run a dragger with trawl gear indoors on autopilot going down the middle of Musquamaca Beach. Sounds like a real bad idea. I think anybody that's running a vessel that is going to be towing gear down the beach needs to have some type of licensure that has experience and accountability attached to it. You can't just say, okay, Joe, I saw you walking down the bulkhead. You want to run the boat? That to me is absolutely frightening. There is no, pretty much, they don't have any skin in the game. Okay. Most fishermen I know, as much as we get badmouthed, are stewards of this ocean and the waterways that we fish. Rhode Island has some of the most experienced people I've ever met in my life. And I mean, my old man was on the ocean his entire life and he was 85 years old when he passed. People that have knowledge you're not going to find in school. But we're just going to say, here's an operator permit, here's an 80-ton vessel, go get some fish. That scares the hell out of me. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead, Todd.
Like I said before, I'm Todd Lander. I'm fairly new to this whole discussion, but maybe I missed some of it. But was there a discussion on, if it's such a good thing, why are you going to a lottery? Why don't you just let all the multi-purpose licenses get years ago, hire the captains? why divide it to 31 and a fee? If it's a great thing, then let's just take all the multi-purposes and let us all do this.
To clarify, the 31 licenses was based on roughly 10% of the existing multi-purpose
But why limit
licenses
it,
that
why
are available.
split it? What I'm confused, I'm looking at this, it's like, well, whoever proposed this, it's apparently a good thing. So let's just change all the multis over, not that I'm for that, so that I can hire anybody on that. Why do I have to pay, I believe it's $1,000?
If issued, it would be
Okay, so there's a
$1,000.
fee on it, and there's a limitation as to how many, why? If it's a great thing, let's just change the whole license over, well, why divide everybody? Just a question, I missed workshops, this whole thing is new, so I'm just curious if there's any answer to that.
It's getting kind of out of the clarifying range, but
That wasn't discussed then, I guess.
yeah, we could
Well,
talk about it
that's
offline.
31, that's a very specific number, and it's obviously divisive, and there's a fee on it. There's really no reason for the fee, $1,000 to do what? Just say, okay. So I'm just confused as to why. Where did you get 31, and if it's such a good thing, let's just make all the multi-purpose licenses, vessel or captain licenses. Why can't I just do it without getting? Doesn't make any. What's the sense of that? What's the sense of dividing?
Sure, so it was based on 10% of the multi-purpose licenses that we have now, and the concept was that you wouldn't, because this is a new thing, not have it just be wide open right from the gate, to have a year of issuance and see how it goes, basically.
Yeah, see, that's very problematic, to be very exclusive, very, very discriminatory, and people that made the lottery and can afford the extra $1,000 can do this, and everybody else can't. Seems to be a very divisive thing. Just making note of that, I don't know if it was discussed, I missed all of that. It's once again strong with the proposed one.
Thanks. Sure.
My name is Pierce Chapel, commercial fisherman. I'd like to know who gets the credit for the landings with this proposal we have? The
So-
operator or the company?
So it would be a vessel license. So right now, the history goes to the license holder. So any landings that occurred would be to the vessel license. So it'd be to the vessel.
The company owns the license.
Well, it was determined that only a natural person who owns the vessel can
You might as
have
well
it.
give away my license because I have to have so many landings to renew my license. If you have it your way with the company, I'm out of business. My license is useless. If you're gonna sell your license, you better sell it now, because it's over.
Thank you. Sure.
Richard Lehman. Does the law have to be changed to implement this? Any law, I mean, is it law that right now that you have to be a Rhode Island resident to hold a multi-purpose fishing license?
That's correct. Only a resident of Rhode Island can have a multi-purpose fishing license.
So a resident that knows nothing about fishing can buy a boat. And then you could say, I got 6 captains from Florida to come up and run my boat $50 a head.
We can issue the license to a natural person who is the owner of the vessel. And it'd be a Rhode Island resident.
That's pretty much what it has.
And yeah, so thank you for that. So it would be an active license, so they'd have to have 40 days of landing in the last 2 years.
Right. If he buys the license with it, if he buys a boat with the license and it has the active landings.
Well, currently, when a license transaction occurs, a new license is issued. And when a new license is issued, it does not carry the history from the previous license holder. So they would have to get their own history. They'd have to get their own 40 days.
And then you could go with this program?
In theory, if they had an active license, they could put in an application, yes.
You really got me confused now. You're telling me that, if I correctly heard this, maybe I'm wrong here, that the fellow buys a boat, not have any, just bought the boat, he's gotta put in 40 days to have that license. Therefore, he don't have the license until he gets the 40 days, correct?
So no, so a license is active regardless of activity. If you want to meet the activity standard, you would have to, yeah, get the 40 days.
He purchased it from somebody that already did this. A license that's already been issued, already, it's a good license, guy has 80 days on it, and he buys that license from that guy. That other fellow has to put in 40 days on top of that?
Just to clarify, yeah, so when a sale of business occurs with a license transfer, a new license is issued to the buyer. So that new license has no history because the license is issued to a person. It's a brand new license. So that person then, if they want to have that license to be considered actively fished, would need 40 days over the next 2 years.
The next 2 years, suppose the guy dies in 4 months. You said 2 years. The guy dies in 4 months, then what? He has 2 years, but he died.
It depends how many days he fished, I suppose.
Well, I'm just saying, you got a 2-year period here. The guy didn't only, 24 months, and in 4 months he dies.
So to clarify our activity standard, you can have all of your landings in either of the 2 years. So if the guy fished 40 days in his 4 months, that would be considered an active license.
And if he didn't, the license is no good.
It's not that it's no good, it's just not considered an active license and could not be transferred. But we're kind of getting away from the purpose of the comment here.
I mean, it's a hardship factor, isn't it? Guy died.
There is, yeah, you can go back, you can activate hardship if someone dies, it goes, look back 10 years.
You gotta have a lot of money to fight you. Federal clutch costs a big buck. That's what it's all about. What this whole industry is going down to do with, because nobody has the money to fight the illegals.
Thank you. Jerry?
I have one question. The vessel owner that owns the vessel, that has a license assigned to it, and hires a captain to run it, is the captain required to be a Rhode Island resident, or can he hire anybody?
There would not be a residency requirement for the captain. They could
So a
hire
non-resident
a non-resident.
can be fishing a multi-purpose licensed vessel in the state of Rhode Island?
That is correct. All right, I'm not seeing any other comments in the audience. Are there any on Zoom?
No hands on Zoom.
All right, in that case, since there are no further comments to be presented at this time, on behalf of the Department of Environmental Management, I would like to thank you for attending and for your comments. At this time, I declare this public hearing to be closed. Again, please be reminded that the public comment period will conclude at 4 p.m. on Thursday, September 22nd. So you still have 10 days to get a written comment into us. Feel free to submit it to myself, to Pete, to Margaret, to anyone on staff. We'll make sure it gets into the packet for the Rhode Island Marine Fishery Council. If anyone has any questions in the meantime, you want to, just clarify some stuff before you make your comment, feel free to reach out to anyone on staff. We have a lot more latitude to answer questions while the hearing is not taking place. Thank you.